Paul, an enigmatic child, describes a dream about a future where the Earth's resources have been depleted and natural habitats have been destroyed along with the wildlife inside. Some time ago an unknown planet appeared in the sky, the Red Moon, which has been the new source of energy to mankind. This energy is called Lumina. But one day, the Red Moon changed its course and now it is headed straight for Earth, protected by an impenetrable magnetic field. Only Paul, who has grown up to be a brilliant astronomer, is capable of stopping this catastrophe. But when his launch date approached, he suddenly disappeared. Somewhere in Paris, Paul, who has been walking in a wasteland, is seen approaching a town full of climate refugees. While trying to avoid the armed soldiers, he collides with a stranger, whom Paul asks for a ride. The stranger takes Paul to a secluded area and shows him a hover Peugeot. The stranger questions why Paul is crazy enough to travel through the wastelands, but Paul doesn't say much. They agree on the price and the stranger sells it to him. But a mini drone has identified Paul while he is talking with the stranger and alerts the soldiers, who arrive at the scene but can't find Paul. On the road, Paul listens to a broadcast about the end of the world and everyone looking for him. He drives past the desolate landscapes looking at a picture of a green forest, his ultimate destination. He increases his speed, looking at his rear-view mirror. He had to make a sudden stop due to a battery failure. He gets out of the car and looks under the hood. He gets frustrated when he sees the battery levels of the car. Suddenly, a mini drone appeared out of nowhere and began to scan him. So he takes out a gun from his car and points it at the mini drone. But he couldn't fire because his hands started shaking. After taking a shot on his arm, Paul makes a perfect shot at the mini drone, which is getting further and further from him, and destroys it. Paul pushes his hover Peugeot to an old shop, hoping to replace his defective Lumina battery. He meets a young girl named Elma and asks her if there is a replacement battery. She tells him they have the battery but it will arrive in 3 days. But he doesn't have 3 days. Then he shows her the drawing of the green forest and gives her money to speed things up. Meanwhile, while Paul is trying to bargain with Elma, Paul sees news about an operation to blow up the Red Moon with explosives, which was carried by shuttle Aurora. The shuttle is being piloted by Elliot, Paul's older brother. Paul watches the operation vigilantly, while Elliot broadcasts the operation from his shuttle. But as soon as Elliot penetrated the Red Moon's magnetic field, his shuttle began to have some troubles. Elliot began shouting while the shuttle experienced serious turbulence, saying he couldn't make it and to get him out. Then the transmission was completely shut down. Paul watched all of it with emotion and went outside, where he found a magazine of his father, Henry W.R., the founder of Space W.R., the company that launched Elliot's spaceship. Then Paul has a flashback of the moment his mom was dying and he visits her while she was on her deathbed. This flashback immediately turns into a nightmare from which Paul wakes up in his car. Paul finds his hands shaking and is about to grab his shot, but a voice tells him he doesn't need it. On the other hand, Elma is seen lying in her trailer. She enjoys music and hangs photos of her family. Then, she turns around to see the video of Paul shown in a podcast, which lists him as the only one capable of saving the world. Elma gets out of the trailer armed with her sniper and comes face to face with Cesar, her temporary guardian. He tells her not to get out, thinking it is dangerous, but she ignores him and goes after Paul. Meanwhile, Elliot's shuttle is seen crashing to the ground and he has survived the crash, sustaining some injury to his face. Elma finds Paul while plotting his next course on a map. She offers him some food in a can and tells him the battery will arrive the next day if he gets lucky. Then she asks him if he is the one to save the world, which he denies. She offers to accompany him to where he is going, but he tells her to go away. At Space WR, Elliot has a conversation with his father about the accident. He feels like a failure and reminisces about the vision he saw when he was crashing. Henry tells him he did his best, but Elliot vows to find his brother, whom he is envious of, and prove his worth to his father. Then Elliot's eyes are seen turning dark. Meanwhile, a car is seen approaching Paul, who is looking inside the hood of his car. After hearing some alarming noise, he hides immediately while Elma watches everything through her sniper from a distance. Paul moves from one hiding spot to the other while a soldier with a gun approaches him. But Paul somehow managed to disappear. When the soldiers are distracted by another man in the area, Paul, who was hiding in a bathtub full of some liquid, gets out and runs away, but the man is killed by the soldiers. Elma returns from watching over Paul and finds her trailer burning. Cesar was the one who set it on fire, choosing not to see the picture of Elma's parents. This act deeply saddens Elma. The next day, Elliot arrives at the shop and Paul hides behind a car, watching what will happen. Cesar was inside the shop and he met Elliot, who showed him Paul's picture on his phone and asked him if he had seen him. Cesar tells him that he never saw him. As Cesar is speaking to Elliot, Elma approaches the window while Paul steals Elliot's car battery. Cesar pulls a gun feeling threatened about Elliot, who doesn't properly identify himself. Then Elliot's eyes began turning black while Cesar began hearing voices inside his head. After the accident, Elliot has somehow gained the ability to hear someone's thoughts and uses it to guilt Cesar using his past against him. The guilt was too much, so Cesar put his gun to his head and committed suicide. Shocked, Elma started running away. Elliot saw her but he couldn't pursue her because his car was now without a battery. So he sends some kind of electronic bug mast with something that looks like a ball. While she was crying in the middle of nowhere, she was picked up by Paul, who was driving past her in his car. At the shop, Elliot is seen smiling after a messenger brings a new Luminar battery, which was intended for Paul's car. After a while, Paul stops at some place and asks Elma to get out of the car, stating it is dangerous to travel with him. Elma tries to intimidate him by saying she will tell everyone about him since she knows what he looks like and where he's going. But Paul is not budging. So she tries a softer approach and Paul agrees to help until the next day, but it is only if Elma takes the back seat of the car. Paul is taken in a flashback to his childhood when was drawing the green forest. Paul saw the events unfolding in his dreams and drew them in his notebook. The dream was revealed to him through the voice of his mother. Although his father thinks it was the trauma of losing his mother, Paul saw a dream where his brother was in a dark state when he was much younger. But nobody believed him. In the present, Elma wakes up and starts to bother Paul about why he won't save the world, which he doesn't answer. Suddenly, Paul lost control of the car. He couldn't steer it. They get a notification about approaching a checkpoint and to cooperate. They reach the checkpoint, but now Elma was in the driver's seat while Paul hid around the car. The soldier had received the picture of Paul on his screen, but a technical malfunction was preventing him from seeing the picture of Elma, which was sent next to Paul. Elma poses as someone in the umbrella business, as the soldier checks out their car. Paul was not seen and they got access to pass the checkpoint. But after they drove away, the image of Elma cleared up and the soldier was upset. They make a stop at a bar, where Paul makes a call to his father. He blames Henry for sending his brother and asks him if he is alive. Henry tells Paul that his brother has survived. Then Paul tells his father not to destroy the Red Moon. Henry thinks Paul is scared and tearfully expresses his regret for not being able to save her. Paul was very emotionally caught up when he heard from his mother that he didn't realize the soldier, they got past the checkpoint, had tracked them, and was standing next to him holding a gun. Paul gets into a fight with the soldier and he almost loses the hand-to-hand combat he tried. But Elma shot a gun and almost hit Paul accidentally. This distracts the soldier and Paul knocks him out, hitting him from the back. Paul leaves the bar with Elma and checks on her if she is alright. Now that she saved his life, Paul begins to open up to her about the dreams he had in his childhood. Henry was the designer of the project to mine the lumina of the Red Moon, but Paul was warned against it in his dreams. He couldn't explain it, so he tried to gather information about it and presented it to his father, who thought his son was crazy. Henry thought it was some kind of psychotic effect of losing his mom and gave him a shot to take. Back from the flashbacks of his father, Paul throws away the shot in a cart found outside on the road and continues his journey. Meanwhile, the mini-circular droid of Elliot appears in the cart. While Elma dyes Paul's hair, so that he doesn't get recognized, Elliot is at the bar and sees where the fight happened. He talks to the bartender, who tells him Paul came with his wife. Elliot smiles and then uses his dark power, causing the lady to electrocute herself. Paul and Elma have continued their journey after Elma came clean about her true intentions about betraying him. But they are pursued by Elliot, who is tracking them using his mini-droid. They use the cover of a lightning desert storm created by the moon. Paul sees the mini-droid and shoots it. Paul and Elma escape Elliot through the storm and make a stop at an abandoned cinema until the storm passes. They enjoy watching some footage of natural life, which causes Elma to ask Paul many questions about the world before its destruction. Suddenly, Paul sees the forest in the film, similar to the one in the picture he was holding, which means the place he was seeking all this time was destroyed. Paul becomes angry for believing in the dreams. Later, Elma wakes up Paul and tells him Elliot and the soldiers have found them. Paul comes up with an idea. He goes outside holding a gun to Elma's head. The plan fails when one of the soldiers shoots Elma in her stomach, causing a shootout. Paul gets Elma into his car and starts driving fast, but he is pursued by Elliot and the soldiers. Paul escapes the roadblock in front of them when Elma helps him to change the car's path into an aerial flight. Elliot does the same with his car and follows them. After a long pursuit, Paul and Elliot's cars collide in mid-air and both crash. They both survive the crash and come face to face with each other while Elma is on the ground lying unconscious. Elliot uses his power on Paul, but Paul overcomes the influence. Then he shoots and kills Elliot. Paul carries Elma and puts her in the shade. After seeing a vision and discovering his childhood notebook, Paul decides to fulfill his destiny. He arrives at Space WR and goes to the Red Moon in a shuttle, while Elma gets some medical treatments. But after reaching the Red Moon, passing its magnetic field successfully, he doesn't release the explosives on the moon. Instead, he starts a self-destruct sequence while moving away from the Red Moon. Elliot's shuttle explodes and the Red Moon moves away from Earth. Elma is heartbroken after seeing Paul's demise. The movie ends with Elma holding an umbrella as Paul's notebook dictates. With that, the movie ends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.